Hey guys, number one Marmaduke fan, and this is another edition of Marvel Before SJW. This is almost Marvel Before Marvel, really. This is a True Believers number one. It's actually Fantastic Four number two. I think they reprinted it because this was probably the first appearance of the Skrulls from outer space. So kind of tied in with the Captain Marvel movie. I'm glad the Fantastic Four are finally getting some love again. So, Zach, your boy Zach used to do Marvel Before SJW. He's talked about bringing it back. I want to do this because I kind of want to look at examples of old comics to pick out what made them work. And, sometimes there's some goofy, cheesy things in them, but I think that's part of the charm. So something I've talked about in videos looking at old comic books is the narrator was important. Silly things happen, but I've argued that it's kind of almost like a fairy tale bedtime story style of creating stories. They know kids are the audience. They know what kids like. So they're just creating stories as fast as possible and stuffing it full of stuff that kids like. And then that ends up being how they generate all of these additional characters. So, let's see, narrator, it's fun stuff for the kids. Yeah, and this is still like the Jack Kirby, Stan Lee era. So the narrator is important. You can actually read this and hear Stan Lee's voice talking to you. So, there'll be new writers who people will get excited about, and they're looking forward to their work. Like Donny Cates seemed to have like a big hullabaloo about Absolute Carnage coming out. But is there a modern writer who uses the narrator box to talk to you in a voice that's distinct? And so Stan Lee's voice was purple prose, Pulp Fiction style. And purple prose is cheesy, but it's very, very fun because you just start getting into the rush of things. I'm going to do an awful Stan Lee impression so you can kind of hear it. What is happening here? What is the Thing doing? Swimming miles offshore toward a lonely Texas tower. Why do his eyes gleam with a sinister, crafty light? Silently, powerfully, he swims closer, closer, hidden by the deepening twilight. So, the point of that awful impression is you can actually hear Stan Lee's voice in his words, kind of like that funny New York drill sergeant hippie voice he used to do in his public face. And that's one of the reasons he became the public face of Marvel Comics, is people could hear it in his public persona and in his writing. He wrote with a voice. And kind of the other interesting thing about this is how everything had to come in fours. So the narrator's getting us excited. The Fantastic Four, they appear to be doing some evil criminal acts. And there's one criminal act for each of the four. And then, again, the narrator comes in and asks us, can our eyes be deceiving us? Is there more to this than meets the eye? By the way, I don't think marble melts. I think marble would crack. So I think that was supposed to be copper. And there's some questionable physics there. And then I like these two little drawings because this is sort of an illustration of maybe like the weakness and the strength of Jack Kirby, where a lot like your boy Zach, I didn't like Jack Kirby that much when I was a kid, but as I saw how much he contributed to the history of comics, I came to respect him as an adult. Jack Kirby wasn't an expert illustrator. He was a scrappy kid who comics became his avenue towards success, and his raw creativity was what he contributed. So when he draws like aliens morphing from the Fantastic Four into Skrulls, he just gets some wavy lines. He doesn't need like a really crazy detailed over-the-top transformation sequence, but it's kind of unsettling because it is that Jack Kirby kind of wonky geometric style still, but just sort of purposefully wavy and energetic. I don't know. So I think Jack Kirby couldn't help, but sort of like Rembrandt couldn't help but draw well. Jack Kirby couldn't help but draw interesting monsters and creatures. They just crop up everywhere. So as there was like a rule of fours, so one for each of the four aliens, then there's going to be like a scene where each of the four Fantastic Four gets to do a cool thing. Johnny finds the vent, Sue Storm turns invisible, Reed Richards finds the hole, and the Thing figures out that if he applies enough force repeatedly, he can burst through steel. So each of the four main characters gets to do something cool, and they come up with this gambit where if they actually perform a crime, maybe the aliens will come out and fight them, right? They fight the aliens. This is so basic. And then they have one of these like hilarious like little kid simple logic things. So they go meet the aliens and they give them clip outs from comic books, from Strange Tales and Journey into Mystery. I love when comic books acknowledge the existence of comic books in their own world. And the aliens just totally believe that the Earth is full of these sci-fi missiles and giant insects and horned crab monsters. What do kids like? Giant monsters with big mouths and red eyes and horns and crab arms and giant bugs and missiles. And they are stuffing this full of things that little kids like. I even like the gambit where, well, how are they going to get out of this one? How are they not going to fly off with the alien ship? And then Reed Richards says, well, we will go back and sacrifice ourselves to cover the evidence trail so you Skrulls can survive. Ben Grimm, he always had kind of like that really sad, tragic aspect to him where he was essentially a monster and he didn't like being a freak. He wanted to be a human. Again, like that people have talked about that endlessly about the Fantastic Four, was the family dynamic and how it kind of had that family drama aspect to it. Now, there was also like an interesting little moment where it looked like Stan Lee was trying to cover up for Jack Kirby, where they fight 3 of the aliens, but one of the aliens seems to be missing. So he just writes, the 4th one is on his way to another galaxy now with the rest of his invasion fleet. When did that happen? Probably Jack Kirby just drew 3 monsters, and then Stan Lee realized that one of the aliens was missing, so he had to come up with an excuse, even though we never see it. And there's a ridiculous the fairy tale style. So the fairy tale style is you're just coming up with the stuff. You're getting towards the end of the story. You know, it's bedtime. You're just, mom and dad are just making up the fairy tale as they go along. And, well, how do you wrap it up? You got to wrap it up. And so you just come up with something and you go with it. Like, you don't sit down and try to like logically pace out every little detail or every little implication. You're just going for it. So they come up with a cheesy, weird, kind of creepy ending, right? So you've got these Skrulls, and they can transform into anything. So you can't really put them in a prison, right? So what are we going to do with these guys? We can't imprison them. They say, please don't kill us. Well, it'd be mean for the heroes to kill them. So Reed Richards has the bright idea that he'll tell them what to change into, and I will hypnotize you so that you will forget your previous identities. You will remain what you become for as long as you live. Will we have a peaceful existence? Promise we'll be contented. They turned them into cows. So they're going to be stuck as cows forever, grazing on a field. But they're content. It's a happy ending. The end. This is a weird ending. But it is a weird ending that comes from thinking as a story of like, hey kids, here's a story. Beginning, monsters, all the cool stuff you like. And here's an end. Every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And if you're telling a fairy tale and you're not worried about, the intricate details of House Stark or whatever, and you're just interested in stuffing it with as much cool stuff as possible, this works. This works in the context of kind of a childlike fairy tale story. It's weird. It's kind of goofy when you look back on it, and it's fun. They actually found a way to have the evil, powerful aliens imprisoned without killing them or I don't know, torturing them or whatever. Now, why didn't they just build like a really cool jail for them? I don't know, because it's comic books. Comic books are fun, and then they do a cool pinup in the Jack Kirby style, promising more readers, more cool stuff. So this was an exuberant time. These were so fun. I don't think I ever read, I think I read the Marvel Essentials of Fantastic Four, which meant I haven't read these in color before. There were some, maybe just for a quick note on color, I want to find the one of like all the army chasing after them. So I do prefer kind of the, what's his name? The guy who did X-Men Grand Design, Ed Piskor. Ed Piskor has written a bit about coloring old school comics and how he prefers to recreating the dot effect pattern. I kind of agree with that. So I would prefer newsprint. I would prefer, I don't know how hard it would be to recreate the old school like 4-color process. But the 4-color process, you had bright colors, but you also had kind of this pointillism effect to it that gave it a bit more subtlety. But this is still a good example of like bright purple, he stands out. Bright orange, he stands out. Blue fog creates a bit more space between the foreground and the middle ground. Yellow, they stand out. Green, white, gray. Red, blue. Every color stands out as a kind of a unique element. I guess that's yellow and that's yellow, so those two tie in together, but they're separated by black and green. So, this is so easy to read. It's so easy to tell where everything is and what it is. And please do not recolor Jack Kirby with modern 3D modeling style color. It absolutely doesn't work for his style. I'm glad they at least did kind of like this minimal color vibe. I still want newsprint to reduce the cost of printing even more. And I'd even like maybe like an Ed Piskor style approach to coloring where they're trying to recreate the original vibes of the colors. I didn't see any other information about artists. It just said Jack Kirby, Stan Lee. So maybe Jack Kirby did his own pencils and inks for this one. Yeah, good, Fantastic Four. Great period of comics history. I'm glad they're finally getting some love. That's enough. I'm number one Marmaduke fan. This has been Marvel Before SJW. I love you guys. Like, comment, subscribe. Click the bell to receive notifications. Check out my Subscribe Star. Love my subscribers on Subscribe Star. I love the Super Chat donators. I love you guys. And I'll catch you later.